Before we dive into this emotional journey, comment below and tell us, do you believe love can truly conquer all, even time and past mistakes? Share your thoughts. The doctor, the tycoon, and the truth. The hospital hallway froze for Alexander Thorne. There she was, after 5 long years, wearing a white coat and a stethoscope around her neck, more beautiful than in his memories. And in her arms, a small boy with curly hair and unmistakable blue eyes, identical to his own. "Val?" His voice barely came out as a whisper. Valentina Hayes tensed upon hearing her name in that voice she had never been able to forget. She instinctively pulled her son closer to her chest, as if protecting him. "Alexander, what are you doing here?" she asked, with a mix of surprise and harshness. "I'm part of the investor group touring the hospital," he replied, unable to take his eyes off the little boy. "I didn't know you worked here." The child, curious, turned to look at the stranger talking to his mom. Alexander felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Those eyes were his own. "And he is?" he began to ask, his voice trembling. "My son," Valentina cut him off sharply. "My son, Alexander. Something you clearly didn't care about when you decided your career was more important than us." The silence that fell between them seemed to contain 5 years of unsaid words. 5 years earlier, New York City shone with that golden sunset light that made everything seem possible. Valentina Hayes and Alexander Thorne walked hand in hand through the park, as they had every Friday since they met in college 3 years ago. "Can you imagine what our life will be like when we finish?" Valentina asked, resting her head on Alexander's shoulder. "You with your MBA, me as a pediatrician." Alexander smiled, kissing her forehead. "It's going to be awesome, my Val. Everything we've dreamed of." Valentina loved it when he used those distinct phrases he had brought with him when he came to study in America. Awesome, cool, for real. Words that now became part of her own vocabulary. "You know what would be even cooler?" she replied, mimicking his accent. "That house near the hospital we saw last week." Their plans seemed so clear, so certain. Valentina finishing her pediatric residency, Alexander working at a local company while waiting for the right moment to join the family business. A life together, maybe children, in the not-too-distant future until that letter arrived. Letter. "They accepted me, Val." Alexander entered the small apartment they shared, waving an envelope with the logo of a prestigious international firm. "It's London, the position I always wanted." Valentina's smile froze. London. Thousands of miles from New York, from her residency, from everything they had planned. "London? But what about our plans? I can't leave now. I'm halfway through my residency and—" "We can make it work," he insisted, though his voice no longer sounded as convinced. "It's only for a year or 2, then I could ask for a transfer." The following days were a silent battle. Calls to hospitals in London that had no openings for foreign residents. Conversations with Alexander's family that made it clear how much they expected him to take this opportunity. "My dad says it's the opportunity of a lifetime," Alexander explained during a dinner they barely touched. "It's the first step to eventually running the whole company." "And what am I, Alex? An obstacle in your path to success?" The words came out more bitterly than Valentina intended. The final conversation took place on a rainy night at the cafe where they had had their first date. The place that had always been their refuge now seemed suffocating. "I can't turn this down, Val," Alexander finally said, his voice broken but determined. "I thought we were building something more important," she replied, tears mixing with the rain as they stepped out onto the street. "Something ours, Alexander. I love you, but I can't pass this up. We can try a long-distance relationship, or you could consider finishing your residency there in a few months. Don't ask me to abandon my dreams for yours when you're not willing to do the same for me." The rain fell heavily as Valentina turned to leave. Alexander stopped her, taking her arm. Is that it? An ultimatum? Either I choose you or my career. No, Alexander, she replied, freeing herself from his grasp. You already chose. That night, in the apartment that would soon no longer be hers, Valentina was packing her things when she found a pregnancy test she had bought days earlier at the bottom of her underwear drawer. She had almost forgotten about it with all the commotion. With trembling hands, she followed the instructions, waiting the longest minutes of her life. When she finally looked at the result, 2 clear lines stared back at her. Positive. She sank to the bathroom floor, tears flowing freely. A baby. Their baby. For a moment, her hand reached for the phone. She had to tell Alexander. This would change everything, wouldn't it? But then she remembered his determined look at the cafe. I can't turn this down. His career would always come first. And if she told him, and he still left? Or worse, if he stayed out of obligation, resenting the lost opportunity? No. If he hadn't chosen her, he wouldn't choose a baby he didn't even know existed. With determination, she put the test in her bag. This child would be hers, and she would be enough for both of them. The day Alexander left for London, Valentina did not go to the airport. Instead, she called her grandmother, Clara, and told her, "Grandma, I'm going to be a mom, and I'm going to need your help." And now, 5 years later, fate had reunited them in that hospital hallway. The man who had chosen his career over love, and the woman who had raised their son alone. He's identical to me when I was little, Alexander murmured, unable to help himself. Liam, honey, go with Aunt Lucy for a moment, okay? Mom has to talk to this gentleman, Valentina said, handing the little boy to a passing nurse who nodded, recognizing the tension in the air. Once alone, Valentina confronted Alexander directly. What did you really come here for, Alexander? To remind me of what you chose not to be a part of our lives? I didn't know, Val. I swear I didn't know, he replied, his voice breaking. Why did you never tell me? I had a right to know. Right? The rage contained for years erupted in her voice. What right did you have after choosing London over us? You had already made your decision, Alexander. I just made mine. Alexander took a step toward her, but Valentina instinctively backed away. Val, please, listen to me, he pleaded. Yes, I made a mistake, but I would never, never have chosen to miss the first years of my son's life if I had known he existed. And what does that change now? She replied bitterly. You're 5 years too late, Alexander. 5 years in which Liam learned to walk, to talk, to read, without you. A heavy silence settled between them. In the back of the hallway, they could see Liam happily playing with some colorful blocks that Lucy had taken from the pediatric playroom. His name is Liam? Alexander finally asked with a sad smile. It was my grandfather's name. I know, Valentina replied, surprising him. I always liked that name when you told me stories about your family. For a moment, the memory of those nights in their small apartment, sharing family stories under the covers, threatened to break the barrier Valentina had built around her heart. But she quickly composed herself. Look, I have patients to attend to, and you surely have an important business meeting to get back to. Val, please. Alexander extended his hand to stop her, but he held back before touching her. Give me a chance to get to know him. He's my son too. Valentina looked him directly in the eyes, those blue eyes that Liam had inherited. How long are you in New York? Indefinitely, he replied firmly. My father had a heart attack last week. I'm here to take over the family business while he recovers. I'm sorry about your father, Valentina said sincerely. I hope he gets better soon. Thank you. He's stable. But he left the sentence hanging, as if he suddenly remembered that he no longer had the right to share those family details with her. Val, I know I don't deserve anything, but at least let me get to know him. Valentina watched her son playing at the end of the hallway. Liam had begun to ask questions about his father, questions for which she no longer had evasive answers. I have a double shift today, she finally said. Tomorrow we'll be at the park near home at 5. It's the same park. You'll recognize it. A spark of hope illuminated Alexander's face. Thank you, Val. You won't regret it, I promise. I'm not doing this for you, she clarified. I'm doing it for Liam. He deserves to know his father, even if it's late. But I warn you, Alexander Thorne, if you ever disappear from his life like you did from mine, I swear I'll… She didn't finish the sentence. There was no need. Both knew the harm a second absence would cause. I won't, he affirmed with a determination she hadn't seen before. I've made many mistakes in my life, Val, but abandoning my son won't be one of them. Valentina nodded briefly, before turning on her heel and heading towards where Liam was playing. Alexander watched her walk away, noticing how his son looked up as she approached, how his eyes, his own eyes, lit up with love and trust. As he left the hospital, the magnitude of what he had just discovered hit him with full force. He had a son, a nearly 5-year-old son he had never seen grow up. A son who didn't even know he existed. In the taxi back to his hotel, Alexander looked out the window at the streets of New York, the city he had abandoned for his ambitions. He took out his phone and canceled his return flight to London, scheduled for the following week. This time, there would be no escape. This time, he would do the right thing, even if it was 5 years too late. At the same time, at the hospital, Valentina locked herself in the doctor's restroom, trying to control the trembling in her hands. Seeing Alexander had been like an earthquake, shaking the foundations she had so carefully built during these years. What have I done? She asked herself softly, looking in the mirror. Was it wrong to hide it from him? Did I do the right thing by allowing him into our lives now? There were no easy answers. Only time would tell if her decision would bring healing or more pain. With a deep sigh, Valentina washed her face, adjusted her stethoscope, and returned to work. Tomorrow would be another day, and with it, the beginning of a new chapter in the life of her small family. What neither of them could imagine was how that casual encounter in a hospital hallway would change their lives forever, forcing them to confront not only the past they had left behind, but also a future they had never imagined. Interactive. Question: how do you think Alexander will prove his commitment to Liam and Valentina? What kind of challenges will they face as they try to build a new family dynamic? London. 3 years earlier, the city of London sparkled under the Christmas lights as Alexander Thorne watched the urban landscape from his office on the 32nd floor. The view was breathtaking, as was his glass and steel office, as was his title as the youngest vice president in the company's history. And yet, he felt hollow. "Mr. Thorne, your mother is on line 2, his assistant announced over the intercom. Alexander sighed before picking up the phone. "Mom, how are you?" "Alexander, son, when are you planning to come home? It's the 3rd Christmas you'll spend alone in London." Beatrice Thorne's voice sounded worried, as it always did when they talked lately. "I have a lot of work, Mom. Maybe I can go for New Year's, but I don't promise anything." The silence on the other end of the line told him what his mother thought without words. "You know, son, your father and I are proud of your professional achievements, but we're worried that you only live to work. Have you been dating anyone since?" "I don't want to talk about that, Mom," Alexander interrupted, more abruptly than he intended. After 5 more minutes of conversation, he hung up the phone and looked out the window again. London was beautiful, but it wasn't New York. And none of the women he had sporadically dated were Valentina. 2 years had passed since his last attempt to contact her. 2 years since that message that was never answered. "I think about you every day. I miss you, Val." After that silence, he had decided to respect her decision not to keep in contact. The ring of his cell phone pulled him from his thoughts. It was Mark, an American colleague, who had invited him to a party. What's up, man? Are you coming, or are you going to stay locked in your office, as always? Alexander smiled despite himself. Mark was the only one who understood his American expressions, and even used them to make him feel less foreign. I don't feel like it, Mark. It's been a tough week. Exactly why you need to go out. There's a gorgeous American woman I want to introduce you to. No thanks, he replied almost automatically. Dude, it's been 3 years. How long are you going to keep this up? The question hung in the air, even after Alexander hung up. 3 years. And still, when he closed his eyes at night, it was Valentina's face he saw. New York City, same time. Mom, look what I drew, shouted a small, 3-year-old Liam, running towards Valentina with a colorful paper in his tiny hands. Valentina stopped reviewing medical charts at the kitchen table to greet her son with a tired but genuine smile. Let me see, my love. How beautiful. It's a puppy. No, Mom. Liam frowned with childlike indignation. It's a dinosaur, like the ones in the book. Valentina stifled a laugh and kissed her son's forehead. Of course it is. Sorry, it's the most beautiful dinosaur I've ever seen. From the kitchen, Grandma Clara watched the scene as she prepared dinner. At 70, Valentina's grandmother had become Liam's second mother, caring for him, while Valentina finished her residency and began as a pediatrician at the Children's Hospital. Liam, go wash your hands. Dinner is almost ready, Clara instructed. When the boy ran off to the bathroom, Clara approached her granddaughter. You look exhausted, honey? Double shift again? Valentina nodded as she rubbed her temples. Dr. Ramirez is on vacation, and we're all covering his shifts. But it's okay. We need the extra money. Liam's expenses go up every month. Clara sat down opposite her, taking her hands in hers. Val, you've done an incredible job with Liam. You're a great mother and an excellent doctor, but you also need to live a little. Don't start with that, Grandma, Valentina sighed. You know my priority now is Liam and my career. And what about Ryan? He's a good man. He looks at you with puppy dog eyes. Valentina smiled faintly. Ryan was a pediatrician from the same hospital, kind and attentive, who had invited her out several times. Ryan is a colleague, nothing more. It's been 3 years, honey. Not all men are like... Don't say his name, please. Valentina cut her off. I don't want to talk about it. At that moment, her phone rang. It was Lucy, her best friend and colleague at the hospital. Val, remember the chief resident position I told you about? It's yours. The director just confirmed it. The news made Valentina truly smile for the first time that day. I can't believe it. Thanks for letting me know, Lou. After hanging up, she hugged her grandmother enthusiastically. They gave me the position, Grandma, chief resident. Clara hugged her tightly, proudly. See, all your effort is paying off. That Alexander guy doesn't know what he missed. Valentina tensed at the name, but relaxed when Liam ran back into the kitchen. I'm hungry, the little boy announced, showing his freshly washed hands. While they ate dinner, Valentina observed her son. Liam's blue eyes, so identical to his father's, looked at her with adoration. Sometimes she wondered if she had done the right thing by not telling Alexander about his existence. But then she remembered the decision he had made, and the doubt dissipated. Mom, can I ask you something? Liam said suddenly. Of course, my love. Leo says all kids have a dad. Where's my dad? The question hit like a bucket of cold water. Valentina looked at her grandmother for help, but she knew this was a question only she could answer. Your dad? She began, carefully choosing her words. Your dad lives very far from here, honey. He had to leave for work, and he can't visit us? Liam's innocent eyes pierced her. It's complicated, my love. Maybe someday you can meet him. Does he love me? The next question was a whisper. Valentina felt a knot in her throat. How to explain to a 3-year-old that his father didn't even know he existed? I'm sure if he knew you, he would love you very much, she finally replied, hugging her son. That night, after putting Liam to bed, Valentina found herself looking at the only photo she had kept of Alexander, hidden at the bottom of a drawer. In it, they both smiled in the park where they used to walk. "Why do I still keep this?" she asked herself aloud, considering tearing it up. But as always, she couldn't bring herself to do it. London. 2 years later, Alexander's phone rang at 3 in the morning. Half asleep, he answered without looking at the caller ID. "Hello? Alexander, son." His mother's voice sounded shaky. "It's your father. He's had a heart attack." Alexander shot up, wide awake. "How is he? What hospital?" "He's stable for now. We're at Metropolis Central Hospital in New York. I'm on my way on the first available flight," he replied, already looking for his suitcase. 4 hours later, he was on a plane bound for New York, the city he had abandoned 5 years ago. The city where he had left his heart. New York City, same moment. The doorbell rang just as Valentina finished dressing Liam to go to the park. "Come in!" she shouted, adjusting her son's small backpack with toys and a snack. Opening the door, she found Lucy with a worried expression. "Are you sure about what you're going to do?" her friend asked without even a greeting. Valentina sighed. "Good morning to you too, Lou." Lucy entered, closing the door behind her. "Sorry, but I just can't believe you're going to let that man into Liam's life after 5 years of absence." "It wasn't exactly a voluntary absence, Lou. He didn't know about Liam. Because you chose not to tell him. And you had your reasons, Val. He chose his career over you, remember?" Valentina looked toward the room where Liam was playing, making sure he couldn't hear them. "I remember perfectly. But Liam deserves to know his father, and Alexander has a right to know his son. And if he decides to disappear again, Liam will suffer." The concern in Lucy's eyes was genuine, and Valentina hugged her warmly. "I know, but I have to give him this chance, for Liam." Lucy looked at her intently. "Are you sure it's just for Liam? Are you not getting your hopes up that—" "No, Lou," Valentina interrupted. "That ended 5 years ago. This is solely for Liam." But as they prepared to leave for the park, Valentina couldn't help but look at herself once more in the mirror, adjusting her hair and applying a little lip gloss. Just in case. The park hadn't changed much in 5 years. The same trees, the same benches, even the ice cream vendor seemed to be the same. Alexander arrived 20 minutes early, nervous as a teenager on his first date. He sat on a bench overlooking the playground, holding a small gift bag he had bought that morning. "What do you get a son you didn't know existed?" he murmured to himself, questioning for the 10th time if the plush dinosaur was appropriate. At 5 o'clock, he saw them arrive. Valentina looked beautiful in a simple blue dress, with her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Liam walked beside her, holding her hand, and occasionally jumping with that inexhaustible energy typical of children. Alexander stood up, feeling his heart pound. When Valentina saw him, she said something to Liam, and they both approached. "Hi," she greeted him in a neutral voice. "You're early. Didn't want to miss a minute," he replied, before kneeling down to Liam's height. "Hi, champ." The boy observed him with curiosity, those familiar blue eyes studying him intently. "Are you my mom's friend?" he finally asked. Alexander looked at Valentina, unsure how to respond. She nodded slightly. "Yes, I'm an old friend of your mom's. My name is Alexander." "I'm Liam, and I'm almost 5, the boy replied, proudly showing his open hand. "Why haven't I seen you before?" The innocent question hit Alexander with the force of a hammer. "Well, I've been living in another country, very far from here. In Mexico." Liam's eyes lit up. "Grandma Clara says I'm half Mexican." Alexander looked at Valentina again, surprised. She shrugged. Couldn't deny him his heritage. She said simply, "No, not in Mexico," Alexander clarified. "I'm from Mexico, but I was living in Spain, in a city called London." "Do they have dinosaurs in London?" Liam asked, clearly interested in more important matters. Alexander smiled, suddenly remembering the gift. "Not that I've seen. But look, I brought you something." he said, offering him the bag. Liam looked at his mother, who nodded, giving him permission. With enthusiasm, he opened the gift and pulled out the green plush dinosaur. "A T-Rex!" he exclaimed excitedly. "It's my favorite. How did you know?" "It was a hunch," Alexander replied, sending a grateful glance heavenward for his luck. "Liam, why don't you go play for a bit while I talk to Alexander?" Valentina suggested. "We can see you from here." The boy nodded, hugging his new dinosaur before running towards the swings. When they were alone, an awkward silence settled between them. "Thanks for coming," Alexander finally said. "It means a lot to me." "As I told you, I'm doing it for him," Valentina replied, sitting on the bench. "Liam has started asking questions about his father. I don't want to lie to him anymore. What have you told him about me?" "Only that you live far away, that you had to leave for work. I've never spoken ill of you, if that's what worries you." Alexander sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I don't deserve it, Val. Not after how I left you." Valentina looked towards the swings where Liam was playing happily. "I didn't do it for you," she repeated. "I did it because I didn't want him to grow up hating his father, regardless of the circumstances." They remained silent for another moment, watching Liam play. "He's incredible," Alexander murmured. "He's perfect, Val. You've done a great job with him." A small smile appeared on Valentina's lips. "Yes, he is. He's smart, curious, and has a big heart, although he's also stubborn, and sometimes a little bossy," she added with a soft laugh. "He reminds me of someone I know." Alexander laughed too, recognizing the similarities with his own character. "How did you do it? Raising a child alone while finishing your residency?" "It hasn't been easy," she admitted. "My grandma Clara has been my salvation, and Lucy, my best friend from the hospital. Between the two of them, they've helped me a lot." "I wish I had been there," Alexander said in a low voice, "for both of you." Valentina looked at him directly for the first time. "But you weren't, Alexander. That was your choice." "A choice I made without all the information," he retorted with a hint of reproach. "Are you blaming me?" Valentina's voice tensed. No, he quickly corrected. "I'm just saying things would have been different if I had known about the pregnancy." "Different how? Would you have turned down the job in London?" The question hung in the air, and Alexander's silence was answer enough. "That's what I thought," Valentina finally said, getting up. "Look, we're not here to relive the past. We're here for Liam. Do you want to be a part of his life or not?" "Of course I want to," Alexander replied, standing up as well. "More than anything in the world." "Good. Then we need to set some terms." The firm, determined Valentina that Alexander remembered had returned, momentarily replacing the worried mother. "I'm listening. First, we'll go slow. You can't tell him you're his father, not yet. For him, you're just a family friend for now. Second, if you're going to come into his life, it has to be consistently. No showing up and disappearing when it suits you. And third, any important decision about him is mine. Are we clear?" Alexander nodded, accepting the conditions without hesitation. "Perfectly clear. I'll do whatever it takes, Val. I'm not going to fail you this time. I'm not going to fail him." "I hope so," she replied. "Because if you hurt him, Alexander, I swear I'll—" She didn't finish the sentence. There was no need. The determination in her eyes said all that was necessary. "I won't," he promised. "Can I ask you something else?" "Tell me. Can I see him regularly? Maybe take him to the zoo this weekend?" Valentina considered the request. "All right, but I'll go with you." "Of course," Alexander accepted quickly. "Like a family." The word hung between them like an unanswered question. Valentina avoided his gaze. "Like Liam and his parents," she corrected. "Don't confuse things, Alexander." Before he could respond, Liam ran back towards them, the dinosaur firmly clutched in one hand. "Mom! Alexander! Did you see me swing high? I almost touched the sky." They both smiled at his enthusiasm. "We saw it, champ," Alexander replied. "You're very brave. Do you want ice cream?" Valentina asked, caressing her son's hair. "Yes, chocolate. Go ask the man over there, see? Tell him you want a chocolate one. We'll catch up." When Liam walked away, Valentina looked back at Alexander. "One last thing. Don't buy him expensive things or spoil him too much. I don't want him to think he can get everything he wants just because you've appeared in his life." "I understand," Alexander nodded, "though it's going to be hard not to spoil him. Believe me, he doesn't need more spoiling than he already gets from my grandmother." Valentina smiled. "Now let's go get that ice cream before Liam decides to ask for all the flavors." As they walked towards the ice cream stand, Liam ran back, and to their surprise, naturally took Alexander's hand. "Come on, Alexander. They have dinosaur ice cream too." Alexander's heart skipped a beat as he felt his son's small hand in his. He looked at Valentina, who watched the scene with a mix of emotions on her face. At that moment, as the sunset bathed the park in golden light, the three walked together towards the ice cream stand. Anyone who saw them would think they were a normal family enjoying a Sunday afternoon. But they knew that reality was much more complicated, and that the path ahead would be full of challenges, secrets, and perhaps someday, interactive question. Will Liam's growing bond with Alexander help bridge the gap between Alexander and Valentina? What kind of challenges will their evolving family dynamic face with the looming shadow of London? The following weeks established a tentative routine. Alexander appeared on Sundays, taking Liam and Valentina to the zoo, the movies, or just for walks around the city. Liam became increasingly comfortable with him, asking questions about London, about Mexico, about everything his curious mind could imagine. One day, while Liam was feeding ducks in a park pond, Valentina received a call from the hospital. "I have to go," she said after hanging up. "Emergency in pediatrics?" "Go, don't worry," Alexander replied. "I can stay with Liam." Valentina hesitated, biting her lower lip. "I don't know. You've never been alone with him." "Val, I'm his father," he said in a low voice so Liam wouldn't hear. "Trust me. I'll take him to your grandmother's house when we're done here." Finally, Valentina agreed. "All right, but call me if you need anything. And no sweets before dinner." When Valentina left, Liam ran back. "Where's Mom?" "She had to go to the hospital to help some children," Alexander explained, kneeling down to his height. "So, it'll be just you and me for a while. What do you say?" Liam considered it for a moment before smiling widely. "Awesome! Can we go to the playground?" They spent the afternoon exploring the park, playing hide-and-seek, and sharing stories. When it started to get dark, Alexander took Liam to Grandma Clara's house, just as he had promised. The elderly woman opened the door with a cautious expression. "You must be Alexander," she said, evaluating him with a critical gaze. "Yes, ma'am. A pleasure to finally meet you." "Grandma, Alexander taught me how to make paper airplanes that really fly," Liam interrupted, proudly showing his creations. "That's great, my boy." Clara smiled, caressing his head. "Go wash your hands for dinner." When Liam disappeared inside the house, Clara looked back at Alexander. "So you've finally returned." "Ma'am, I didn't know about Liam, I swear." "Don't swear to me anything," Clara cut him off. "Oaths are easy to make, and even easier to break. I'll only tell you one thing. That boy is the most precious thing we have. Valentina has sacrificed a lot for him. Don't you dare show up in his life if you don't plan to stay." "I'm not going anywhere," Alexander affirmed with determination. "I want to be part of my son's life, and Valentina's, if she allows me." Clara studied him for a moment longer, before slightly softening her expression. "Time will tell if you're a man of your word, Alexander Thorne. For now, come in and have dinner with us. Liam would be disappointed if you left so soon." That night, Alexander dined in Clara's modest house, listening to Liam's stories about kindergarten, his friends, and his favorite dinosaurs. For the first time in years, he felt exactly where he was supposed to be. When Valentina arrived later, she found Liam asleep on the sofa, his head resting on Alexander's lap, who was quietly reading him a dinosaur story. "He fell asleep halfway through the story," Alexander explained in a whisper. Valentina observed the scene with a mix of contradictory emotions. Was this what her life would have been like if things had been different? A normal family, with Liam growing up with both his parents? "Thank you for taking care of him," she said, approaching to pick up Liam. "He seems to have enjoyed himself with you." "He's an incredible child, Val. Every minute with him is a gift." Their eyes met over Liam's sleeping head, and for an instant, time seemed to stop. 5 years of separation vanished like fog under the sun, leaving only the connection they had always shared. But the moment passed as quickly as it had come. Valentina broke eye contact, focusing on taking Liam to his bed. "It's late," she said when she returned. "You should leave." Alexander nodded, understanding that there was still a long way to go. "Of course. Thanks for today, Val. It means a lot to me." "It means a lot to Liam, too," she replied, accompanying him to the door. "He's growing fond of you quickly." "And you?" he asked before he could stop himself. Valentina looked at him seriously. "I just want what's best for my son. For our son," she corrected herself. "Good night, Alexander." "Good night, Val." As he walked back to his hotel, Alexander smiled to himself. It was a beginning. A small step on the long road to redemption, and perhaps someday, towards rebuilding the family they never got to form. What he didn't know was that this path was about to become much more complicated than he imagined. Interactive question. How will Alexander's parents react to meeting Liam and Valentina? Will Valentina choose her career in London over her burgeoning family in New York? The office that the Thorn Group board of directors had assigned to Alexander was almost as impressive as the one he had in London, but he had barely noticed it. After 2 weeks in New York, his thoughts were dominated by Liam and the brief moments he could spend with him. "Mr. Thorn, your father is on line 1, his new assistant announced over the intercom. Alexander picked up the phone, mentally preparing himself for the conversation. "Dad, how are you feeling today?" "Better, son, better," replied Edmund Thorne's still weak voice. "The doctors say I can go home next week." "That's excellent news," Alexander smiled, genuinely relieved. "How are things at the office? Have you reviewed the contracts with the Brazilian suppliers?" "Everything's under control, Dad. Rest and don't worry about the business." There was a brief silence before his father continued. "Your mother says you've been distracted, that something else is occupying your mind besides work." Alexander sighed. He should have imagined his mother would notice his behavior. "It's complicated, Dad. I'll tell you when you're more recovered." "Son, I just survived a heart attack. I think I can handle anything you have to tell me." Alexander looked at Liam's photo he now kept on his cell phone. He had taken it the previous Sunday, when the boy was building a sandcastle in the park. "I have a son, Dad," he finally said. "A boy almost 5 years old." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. "Valentina?" his father asked at last, surprising him with his intuition. "Yes, but I didn't know. I found out just 2 weeks ago, when I ran into her at the children's hospital." "A grandson," Edmund murmured, and Alexander could hear the emotion in his voice. "A grandson we knew nothing about. Your mother is going to go crazy when she finds out. Please don't tell her yet. The situation is delicate. I'm trying to win Valentina's trust back, and above all, to get to know my son. What's his name? What's his—" "Liam," Alexander replied proudly. "Liam Hayes, like your grandfather," Edmund observed with approval. "And what's he like?" "He's perfect, Dad. Smart, curious, full of energy. He has my eyes and Val's smile." The conversation continued for a few more minutes, with Edmund asking for more details about his newly discovered grandson. When they finished, Alexander stared out the window, thoughtful. His father had taken the news better than expected. In fact, he seemed genuinely excited about the idea of having a grandson. How would his mother react? And how to introduce them into Liam's life without overwhelming the child or upsetting Valentina? A message on his cell phone interrupted his thoughts. It was Valentina. "Liam has a presentation at school tomorrow at 10. He's playing a dinosaur. He asked if you could come." Alexander smiled widely. It was the first time Liam had specifically asked for his presence. "I wouldn't miss it for anything." "I'll be there," he replied immediately. The kindergarten, Sunshine Meadows, was decorated with drawings of prehistoric animals and giant plants. Parents settled into small chairs, while the children, nervous and excited, prepared backstage in makeshift curtains. Alexander located Valentina in the third row and approached shyly. "Can I sit with you?" he asked. She nodded, moving to make room for him. Alexander noticed she wore her hair loose and a floral dress that made her look younger and more relaxed than in her usual medical uniform. "You look very beautiful today," he commented, unable to help himself. "Thank you," she replied with a small smile. "I took the day off to be here. How's Liam?" "Nervous?" "Terrified and excited in equal measure," Valentina laughed. "He's been practicing his T-Rex roar all week. Even Grandma Clara knows the lines by heart." The mention of Clara reminded Alexander of something important. "Val, there's something I need to tell you. I told my father about Liam." Valentina's expression tensed immediately. "Why did you do that without consulting me first?" "I'm sorry, you're right. I should have talked to you first," Alexander acknowledged. "But he noticed something was up and, well, he just had a heart attack. I didn't want to lie to him." Valentina sighed, processing the information. "How did he take it?" "Surprisingly well. He's excited to have a grandson." Alexander paused. "He wants to meet him, Val. My mother, too, although I haven't told her anything yet." "And did you tell them that's not so simple? Liam is just getting to know you. Of course, I made it clear that everything has to go at your pace, and Liam's." Before they could continue the conversation, the lights dimmed, and the teacher announced the beginning of the play, A Day in the Age of Dinosaurs. The play was charmingly chaotic, as might be expected from a production performed by preschool children. Some forgot their lines, others spoke too softly, and a small triceratops decided halfway through the show that he preferred to be a superhero. But Liam shone as the proud T-Rex he was. When his big moment came, he stepped forward and roared with such conviction that several children in the front row pretended terror, while their parents laughed and applauded. Valentina discreetly, but instinctively, took Alexander's hand during her son's roar, squeezing it with shared pride. He intertwined his fingers with hers, and for a perfect moment, they were simply two parents marveling at their son. When the lights came on, and Valentina realized their hands were joined, she quickly withdrew hers, as if the contact had burned her. "I'm going to get him," she said, getting up hastily. Alexander nodded, giving her space, but his hand still held the warmth of hers. Moments later, Liam came running towards him, still in parts of his dinosaur costume. "Alexander, did you see me? Did you hear my roar?" he asked excitedly. "Of course, champ," Alexander replied, bending down to receive the child's impact. "You were the most terrifying dinosaur of all time." "I know," Liam exclaimed with adorable arrogance. "Grandma couldn't come because her knees hurt, but Mom recorded everything to show her. And I'll buy ice cream for the best dinosaur in the world," Alexander added. "If your mom agrees, of course." Liam looked at his mother with pleading eyes. "Can we, Mom? Please?" Valentina pretended to consider it seriously. "I don't know, do dinosaurs eat ice cream?" "Yes," Liam assured him with conviction, especially after scaring a whole class. The three laughed, and for a moment anyone who saw them would think they were a normal family celebrating their son's school achievement. The weeks turned into months, and Alexander gradually integrated into Liam's routine. Sunday outings, afternoon playdates, even some dinners at Grandma Clara's house, who little by little began to accept his presence. One afternoon, while Liam was taking his nap after an exhausting day at the zoo, Alexander and Valentina talked softly in the small living room of the apartment. "I think it's time to tell him the truth, Val," Alexander said, looking towards the room where his son was sleeping. "It's been almost 3 months. Liam is asking more and more why he spends so much time with you." Valentina nodded slowly. She had also been thinking the same thing. "I know. This morning he asked me if you were my boyfriend." She smiled faintly. "I told him no, and then he asked why you were always with us if we weren't dating. And what did you answer? That we're friends, but I know it's not enough. He's a smart kid, Alex. He knows there's something more." The use of his nickname, something Valentina hadn't done since their reunion, did not go unnoticed by Alexander. It was a small sign that the barriers between them were beginning to soften. "How do you think we should do it?" he asked. "With the simple truth, no complications or elaborate explanations," Valentina replied. "Alexander is your dad. That's all you need to know for now. And if he asks where I've been all these years," Valentina sighed, rubbing her temples, "we'll tell him you were working far away, but that now you've come back to be with him. You don't need to know more details for now." "Val, Alexander hesitated, searching for the right words. "I want to thank you for this, for giving me the opportunity to be part of his life. I know you didn't have to. It's the right thing to do, Alex. Liam deserves to know his father," she replied, looking at him directly. "And you've shown that you truly want to be part of his life." The moment of honesty between them was interrupted by Liam's sleepy voice from the hallway. "Mom, I'm thirsty." Valentina got up to attend to him, but before leaving, she looked at Alexander. "Tomorrow. We'll tell him tomorrow." The next day, Alexander arrived at the apartment early, bringing with him a cake that said, "For Liam with love." He was more nervous than at any corporate presentation or multi-million-dollar negotiation. Valentina had prepared the atmosphere, a quiet afternoon at home, with Liam's favorite toys and a relaxed environment. "Liam, honey," Valentina began, when the three of them were sitting in the living room. "Alexander and I want to talk to you about something important." The boy looked at them with curiosity, nibbling a cookie. "Is it something bad?" he asked. Always perceptive. "No, my love, nothing bad," Valentina reassured him. "In fact, it's something very good." Alexander took a deep breath before speaking. "Liam, do you remember asking me why I spent so much time with you?" The boy nodded, watching him intently. "Well, it's because—" Alexander looked at Valentina, who nodded, encouraging him. "It's because I'm your dad, Liam." Liam's big blue eyes widened enormously, moving from Alexander to his mother and back to Alexander. "My dad?" he repeated incredulously. "You're my real dad?" "Yes, honey," Valentina confirmed, moving to sit next to her son. "Alexander is your dad." Liam remained silent for what seemed like an eternity, processing the information with his almost 5-year-old mind. "Why didn't you tell me before?" he finally asked. "Because we wanted you to get to know Alexander well first," Valentina explained, "so you'd feel comfortable with him. And why weren't you with us before?" The next question was directed squarely at Alexander, and it contained all the confusion and innocent pain of a child who had grown up without a father. Alexander knelt in front of Liam, gently placing a hand on his small shoulder. "Because I was working very far away, champ, in another country. And—" he looked briefly at Valentina, deciding to keep the explanation simple. "And I didn't know I had such a wonderful son like you. But now that I know, I'm not going anywhere. If you let me, I want to be your dad every day, not just on Sundays." Liam processed this with a furrowed brow in concentration. "So I can call you Dad?" he asked timidly. "Nothing would make me happier," Alexander replied, his voice breaking with emotion. What happened next took both adults by surprise. Liam launched himself into Alexander's arms, hugging him tightly. "I have a dad," he exclaimed with pure joy. "Like Leo and Max. Wait till I tell them." Valentina watched the scene with contained tears. Seeing her son embrace the man who had once left her stirred contradictory emotions. Joy for Liam, who finally had the father he had always wanted, and an ancient pain that had never completely healed. When Liam broke the hug, he looked at his parents with comical seriousness. "So now you're going to live together like Leo's parents?" he asked innocently. The question landed like a bomb in the room. Alexander and Valentina exchanged uncomfortable glances. "No, honey," Valentina replied softly. "Dad and I don't live together, but we both love you very much and will always be with you." "But why not?" Liam insisted, confused. "Sophia says moms and dads live together." "Some moms and dads live in different houses, Liam," Alexander explained. "But that doesn't mean we love you any less. In fact, you're lucky because you have two houses, Mom's and mine." "You have a house?" Liam's eyes lit up with renewed interest. "Can I see it?" "Of course," Alexander smiled, relieved by the change of subject. "In fact, I'm looking for a new house here in New York. Maybe you could help me choose it." "Yes," Liam exclaimed, enthusiastic. "I want one with a pool and a room just for me." The adults laughed, grateful for the children's adaptability, while Liam ran to his room to find something he wanted to show his newly discovered father. Valentina and Alexander exchanged a look of relief. "It went better than I expected," she commented in a low voice. "He's an incredible child, Val. You've done a wonderful job with him." "Thank you," Valentina replied with a small smile. "But the hard questions will come later, when he processes everything." "We'll be ready," Alexander assured her. "Together." The word floated between them, loaded with meaning. Together as parents, or maybe someday as something more. Before they could explore that idea, Liam ran back with his photo album, eager to show his father all the photos of his life that he had missed. And as the three of them sat down to go through the album pages, with Liam explaining each photo in detail, they formed a picture that anyone would have mistaken for a family that had always been together. But both Alexander and Valentina knew that the path to truly becoming a family was just beginning. Interactive question. How will Liam's growing understanding of his parents' past impact their future? Will Valentina accept the London offer, or will Alexander find a way to keep them together in New York? The first few weeks after Liam learned the truth about his father had been a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. The boy alternated between moments of euphoria at finally having a dad and periods of confusion and increasingly difficult questions to answer. "Why didn't you know, Mom?" "If I'm your son," he asked one afternoon, while Alexander helped him build a dinosaur model. Valentina, who was preparing a snack in the kitchen, strained to hear the answer. "I did know your mom, champ," Alexander replied carefully. "In fact, your mom and I were very good friends before you were born." "And why didn't you know I was coming?" Alexander looked towards the kitchen, seeking help, but Valentina pretended to be busy. This was one of those questions she had anticipated, and it was only fair that Alexander find a way to answer it. "Well," Alexander chose his words carefully, "I went to work very far away before I knew you were on your way. And when I came back, I had the most wonderful surprise in the world when I discovered I had an amazing son like you." Liam seemed satisfied with the answer for the moment, focusing again on his dinosaur model. But Valentina knew more questions would come with time, each more complex. Life had acquired a new normal. Alexander had rented an apartment a few blocks from Valentina's house, and he spent as much time with them as his business obligations allowed. On weekends, Liam alternated. Some he spent entirely with his father, others with his mother, and occasionally the three of them made plans together. One Saturday afternoon, while Liam was enjoying his swimming class, Alexander and Valentina waited in the sports club's cafeteria. "My parents insist on meeting him, Val," Alexander commented, stirring his coffee. "My mother practically harasses me with daily messages, asking when she can see her grandson." Valentina sighed. It was a topic they had been avoiding. "I know, and I understand they want to meet him. It's just that—" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't want to overwhelm him with too many changes at once. It's been almost 2 months since we told him the truth," Alexander pointed out. "He's adapted incredibly well. I think he's ready to meet his grandparents." Valentina fiddled with her napkin, thoughtful. "How about a meal at my grandmother's house?" she suggested finally. A neutral but familiar ground for Liam. "We could invite your parents this Sunday." Alexander's smile lit up his face. "Really? That would be perfect. My parents will be delighted. But with conditions," Valentina added, raising a finger. "No extravagant gifts. No promises they can't keep. And above all, no comments about us." "Us," Alexander repeated, raising an eyebrow with interest. "You know what I mean," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "No insinuations about a reconciliation or about forming a traditional family. I don't want Liam to get his hopes up. And you?" Alexander asked softly. "Are you getting your hopes up, Val?" The question hung in the air, uncomfortable and dangerous. Valentina finally looked up, meeting those blue eyes she had never been able to forget. "That's not fair, Alexander," she said softly. "You can't disappear for 5 years and expect everything to go back to normal." "I don't expect that," he replied, leaning forward. "I know I hurt you. I know I made the wrong decision. But people make mistakes, Val. And some of us deserve a second chance." "This isn't just about us," she retorted. "It's about Liam. We can't play with his feelings." Before Alexander could respond, they saw Liam running towards them, his hair wet, and a big smile on his face. "Mom! Dad! The teacher says I can almost swim without floats." The pride in his voice when he said "Dad" still made Alexander's heart flutter every time. "That's incredible, champ," he exclaimed, picking him up, not caring that he got wet. "Soon you'll be like a fish. Or like a mosasaurus," Liam corrected, always faithful to his dinosaur obsession. "They're giant marine reptiles." Valentina smiled, drying her son's hair with a towel. "My little paleontologist. Let's get you changed before you catch a cold." As Valentina took Liam to the changing rooms, Alexander watched them walk away, thinking about the interrupted conversation. Was there really a possibility for them, or was he chasing an impossible dream? Sunday arrived with perfect weather and nerves on edge. Grandma Clara had prepared a traditional American barbecue, determined to impress her great-grandson's Mexican grandparents. Valentina wore a simple but elegant blue dress and found herself checking her appearance in the mirror more times than usual. "You look beautiful, honey," Clara commented, surprising her in the act. "As if you want to impress someone." "It's not that, Grandma," Valentina denied, blushing slightly. "I just want to make a good impression on Alexander's parents." "Uh-huh," the old woman replied with a knowing smile. "And I was born yesterday." Before Valentina could defend herself, the doorbell rang. Liam ran to open it, excited at the prospect of meeting his other grandparents. Alexander entered first, followed by Edmund and Beatrice Thorne. Edmund, still recovering from his heart attack, walked with the aid of a cane, but his presence was still imposing. Beatrice, elegant in a designer outfit, looked around with barely disguised curiosity. "Dad!" Liam exclaimed, throwing himself into Alexander's arms. "Hello, champ," he smiled, kissing his forehead, before turning to his parents. "Liam, I want to introduce you to some very special people. These are your grandparents, Edmund and Beatrice. Liam observed them with childlike curiosity. The resemblance between Alexander and his father was undeniable, especially in the shape of their jaw and their gaze. "Hello," he greeted shyly. "Are you my grandparents from Mexico?" Beatrice, who until then had maintained a composed expression, knelt down to the child's height, and her eyes filled with tears. "Yes, my beautiful child," she replied, her voice breaking with emotion. "We are your grandparents, who have come from very far away to meet you." Liam, always warm, surprised her with a spontaneous hug that melted any initial tension. Edmund, more reserved, waited his turn to shake his grandson's small hand with solemnity. "A pleasure to finally meet you, Liam," he said in a deep voice. "You have the Thorn eyes." "Really?" Liam asked, excited by the connection. "Dad says the same thing." Valentina watched the scene with mixed feelings. On one hand, she was happy to see Liam so excited. On the other hand, she couldn't help but feel a pang of resentment towards this family that now appeared in their lives as if nothing had happened. "Valentina," Beatrice's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Thank you for letting us meet our grandson. You don't know how much it means to us." There was sincerity in her voice, and Valentina found herself nodding. "Liam deserves to know all his family." The meal went surprisingly well. Grandma Clara and Beatrice found common ground in their love for cooking, exchanging recipes and techniques. Edmund, initially formal, relaxed when Liam began to show him his dinosaur collection, explaining each species with an adorable seriousness. Alexander observed the interactions with a mix of relief and hope. Seeing them all together, sharing the table, laughing, and conversing like a normal extended family, was more than he had dared to dream. At one point, he found himself alone with Valentina in the kitchen, while the others enjoyed dessert on the patio. "Everything's going well, don't you think?" he commented, helping her serve coffee. "Better than I expected," she admitted. "Your parents are different from how I imagined them." "More human?" Alexander suggested with a mischievous smile. "Something like that," Valentina smiled. "Your mother isn't the witch I had built up in my mind, and your grandmother hasn't tried to poison me with food, so that's a victory too." They both laughed, sharing a moment of complicity that reminded them of old times. Without thinking, Alexander moved closer and brushed a lock of hair from Valentina's face. "You look beautiful today, Val," he murmured. "Well, you look beautiful every day, but especially today." Valentina stood still, caught between the desire to pull away and the longing to get closer. Alexander's fingertips brushed her cheek in a caress so light it could have been imaginary. "Alex, we can't," she began, but her voice lacked conviction. "Why not?" he asked, moving a little closer. "We're adults. Liam is happy. Our families get along. What's stopping us, Val?" Their faces were so close they could feel each other's breath. 5 years of separation seemed to evaporate with every second. "I'm scared," Valentina confessed in a whisper. "Scared you'll leave again. Scared Liam will get hurt. Scared to trust again." "I'm not going anywhere," Alexander promised, taking her hand. "My place is here, with you, with my family." The moment seemed perfect for a kiss they both secretly longed for, but they were interrupted by Liam's voice calling from the patio. "Mom! Dad! Come see the trick Grandpa Edmund taught me!" They quickly separated, like teenagers caught by their parents. Valentina picked up the coffee tray with slightly trembling hands. "Let's go," she said, avoiding Alexander's gaze. "They're waiting for us." But something had changed between them. A door they both thought was closed forever had opened slightly, letting in a ray of hope. Interactive question. Will Valentina choose her dream job in London, or will she prioritize her rekindled relationship with Alexander and Liam? How will their professional paths align with their personal lives? The following week brought a more established routine. Alexander had dinner with Valentina and Liam almost every night. He helped the boy with his homework and then returned to his apartment, which felt less and less like a home and more like a temporary place. One afternoon, while Liam was at his taekwondo class, Valentina received a call that would change everything. "Dr. Hayes," she answered professionally. "Yes? Lucy? Speak slower. I don't understand you." "What? Are you sure?" When Alexander arrived to pick them up, he found Valentina unusually quiet. "Is everything all right?" he asked, noticing her worried expression. "I'll tell you later," she replied, discreetly signaling towards Liam, who was excitedly telling her about his new kick. That night, after putting Liam to bed, Valentina invited Alexander to stay and talk. "They offered me a position in London," she announced without preamble. "At the International Hospital, the same one where you were going to work when we broke up," Alexander completed, surprised. "Val, that's incredible? Or not?" "I don't know," she confessed, running a hand through her hair. "It's a unique opportunity. Head of the Pediatric Research Department. A professional dream." "And are you considering accepting it?" Alexander asked, feeling a knot in his stomach at the possibility of her taking Liam far away. "Lucy also received an offer," Valentina continued. "We'd go together, and the pay is excellent. We could give Liam the best education, but he'd be far from me," Alexander pointed out, unable to hide his anguish. "Just now that we're starting to be a family, Val. Just now that Liam has a father." Valentina looked at him with a mix of emotions. "I know, and it's what's costing me the most to decide," she admitted. "Liam adores you, Alex. These months with you have been wonderful for him." "And for you?" Alexander asked, moving closer to her on the sofa. "Have they been wonderful for you too?" Valentina looked down, but Alexander gently lifted her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Be honest, Val. For once, think about what you want, not just what's best for Liam or for your career." "I'm scared," she finally confessed, her voice breaking. "Scared to admit that I never stopped loving you, even when I wanted to hate you. Scared that if I let my guard down, if I trust again, I'll end up heartbroken again." Alexander took her hands in his. "And I'm scared of losing you again," he said sincerely. "Of losing both of you. But I'm more scared of not trying, Val, of not fighting for us." Slowly, as if giving her time to pull away, Alexander leaned towards her. This time, there were no interruptions. Their lips met in a tentative kiss that quickly deepened, releasing 5 years of longing and suppressed feelings. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily, as if they had run a marathon. "What are we going to do?" Valentina whispered, resting her forehead against his. "I don't know," Alexander replied. "But whatever it is, we'll decide it together this time, as a family." That night, Alexander did not return to his apartment. For the first time in 5 years, he slept under the same roof as Valentina, with the tacit promise of a new beginning. But the London offer remained on the table, like a shadow threatening their nascent happiness. Would this time Valentina choose her career over love? Or would they finally find a way to balance their professional and personal dreams? The answer would have to wait, because destiny had one more surprise in store for them. One that would test their rekindled love and newly formed family in a way neither of them could imagine. Interactive question. How do you think their family and friends will react to their new life in London? What do you think is the biggest challenge they will face as they try to balance their careers and family life? Alexander woke up with the dawn light filtering through the curtains. For a moment, he felt disoriented until he remembered where he was, in Valentina's bed, with her nestled against his chest, breathing softly in her sleep. They hadn't made love. Both had tacitly agreed it was too soon, that they needed time to rebuild what they once had. But they had slept in each other's arms, conversing in whispers late into the night, making up for 5 years of absence. Careful not to wake her, Alexander brushed a lock of hair from Valentina's face. She looked so peaceful, so beautiful. Time had added small lines around her eyes, marks of laughter and worries he hadn't shared. His phone vibrated on the nightstand, a message from London. Alexander ignored it. Anything related to the office could wait. "Good morning," Valentina murmured, slowly opening her eyes. "Been awake long?" "Long enough to make sure you're not a dream," he replied, kissing her forehead. "I was afraid of waking up and discovering it had all been my imagination." Valentina smiled, stretching like a cat. "It's not a dream, although I still can't believe you're here, in my bed." "Do you regret it?" Alexander asked, suddenly insecure. "No," she replied firmly. "It's just that everything is happening very fast. A few months ago, you didn't even know you had a son, and now we're together?" he completed. "Is that what we are, Val? Are we together?" Before she could answer, the bedroom door burst open, and Liam appeared in his pajamas, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mom, I'm—" He stopped when he saw Alexander in his mother's bed. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Valentina and Alexander exchanged panicked glances. They hadn't planned how to explain this situation to their son. "Good morning, champ," Alexander greeted, trying to sound casual. "I came very early to have breakfast with you guys." "In pajamas?" Liam asked, too observant for his age. Valentina decided honesty was the best policy. "Dad stayed overnight, honey," she explained. "Sometimes, when two people really like each other, they like to sleep together." Liam's eyes lit up with understanding and excitement. "Like Leo's parents," he exclaimed. "Does that mean you're going to live together? Are we going to be a normal family?" The innocent but hopeful question left them speechless for a moment. "Come here, my love." Valentina opened her arms, inviting Liam to climb into bed with them. "We are already a family, even if we don't all live in the same house. But it would be better if we lived together, wouldn't it?" Liam insisted, settling comfortably between them. "That way we could have breakfast together every day, and Dad could tell me stories every night." Alexander and Valentina exchanged glances over their son's head. The situation was complicated, especially with the London offer still pending. "You know what?" Alexander said, changing the subject. "I think today is a perfect day for pancakes. Who wants to help me make them?" "Me!" Liam exclaimed, momentarily forgetting the previous topic. "With chocolate chips." As the two headed to the kitchen, Valentina stayed in bed for a moment longer, reflecting. The illusion in Liam's eyes, imagining a normal family, had touched her heart. But it also reminded her how much he could be hurt if things didn't work out between her and Alexander. And then there was London, an opportunity that, ironically, was very similar to the one that had separated Alexander from her 5 years ago. Life, apparently, had a twisted sense of humor. The vibration of the phone woke Valentina in the middle of the night. Beside her, Alexander slept soundly. 3 weeks had passed since that first night together, and now he practically lived with them, though he kept his apartment as a formality. "Hello?" she whispered, trying not to wake Alexander. "Dr. Hayes, this is Dr. Mendez from the International Hospital in London." The voice on the other end was formal, but kind. "I apologize for the hour, but with the time difference, it was the only available moment." "No worries," Valentina replied, silently getting up to leave the room. "How can I help you?" "We need your answer regarding our offer, doctor. The board of directors meets tomorrow to finalize hirings, and your name is on the priority list." Valentina sighed. She had been avoiding making a decision, postponing the inevitable. "I still need a little more time to consider it, doctor. My son's situation. I completely understand," he interrupted her. In fact, that's one of the reasons I'm calling you. We are willing to offer you additional conditions. Help finding an excellent school for your son, housing assistance, and even special permission to work flexible hours during the adaptation period. The offer was tempting, more than tempting. It was almost impossible to refuse from a professional standpoint. I appreciate it very much, Valentina replied. I will give you my definitive answer tomorrow, without fail. After hanging up, Valentina stayed in the dark living room, thinking. What should she do? Accept the best professional opportunity of her life, or stay for a relationship that was just beginning to bloom? Who was that? Alexander's voice startled her. He was standing in the doorway, his hair disheveled and a worried expression. London, she simply replied. They need my answer tomorrow. Alexander sat next to her on the sofa, taking her hands in his. And what have you decided? I don't know, Alex, she confessed, resting her head on his shoulder. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, the kind of job I always dreamed of. But Liam is so happy here with you, and we're just starting over. Val. Alexander spoke with a seriousness unusual for him. I need you to listen to me. I love you. I think I never stopped loving you, even when I was thousands of miles away building an empty career, and all I want is for you and Liam to be happy, but let me finish, he asked. 5 years ago, I asked you to give up your career for me. It was selfish and wrong. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. What do you mean? She asked, confused. That if London is where your dream is, then London is where we should be. All three of us. Valentina looked at him in disbelief. You would come with us? You would leave everything here? In a heartbeat, he replied without hesitation. I can manage the company from anywhere. My father is almost recovered and can take back control. The only thing that matters is that we're together, Val. This time, I choose my family. Tears sprang from Valentina's eyes without her being able to hold them back. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of renewed love. I love you, she said simply, before kissing him with all the love and passion contained for years. This time, there were no more barriers between them. They gave themselves to each other as if it were the first time, rediscovering their bodies, their souls, the love that had never truly died. The next morning brought with it the light of a new day and a long-considered decision. Valentina had spent hours on the terrace contemplating the sunrise over New York, the city that had been her home all her life. When Alexander joined her, bringing 2 cups of coffee, her serene expression told him she had reached a conclusion. I'm not going to accept the position in London, Valentina announced without preamble. Alexander looked at her, surprised. Are you sure? Last night I was confused, she explained, taking a sip of coffee. I thought I had to choose between my career and our family, but this morning I realized that's not true. I don't understand. I talked to Lucy an hour ago, Valentina continued. She's going to accept the London offer, and I proposed to the director of the Children's Hospital, a new pediatric research department here in New York. We've needed one for years. And what did he say? Alexander asked, beginning to understand. That we'd need funding, Valentina smiled. And coincidentally, I know a successful entrepreneur who might be interested in supporting the cause. Alexander let out a laugh. Very clever, Dr. Hayes. Are you using my feelings to get funding? Absolutely, she joked. Will it work? You know it will, he replied, kissing her softly. But Val, are you really sure? I don't want you to sacrifice your dreams for us. Valentina took his face in her hands, looking him directly in the eyes. My dream is to help children, to do research, to make a difference. I can do that here or in London. But my home, Alex, my home is where you and Liam are, and our home is here, where we can be close to Grandma Clara, where Liam has his friends, his school, where we can build something together without anyone having to sacrifice. Emotion overwhelmed Alexander. This time, no one had to give up anything. This time, they had found a path that allowed everyone to be happy. "I love you, Val," he murmured against her lips. "I love you so much it hurts." "I love you too, Alex," she replied. "I always did, even when I tried to forget you." The sound of footsteps interrupted them. Liam appeared on the terrace, still in his pajamas, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Good morning," he yawned. "Why are you up so early?" "We were planning a surprise," Alexander improvised, exchanging a complicit look with Valentina. "What surprise?" Liam's eyes lit up with interest. Valentina knelt down to his height. "You see, honey, Dad and I have been talking, and we thought you might like us all to live together, as a family." "Really?" Liam exclaimed, wide awake now. "Dad is going to live with us forever?" "Well, I was thinking of something better," Alexander intervened. "How about we look for a new house? A big one, with a garden for you to play, and maybe even a special room for your dinosaurs." "Yes!" Liam shouted, jumping with excitement. "And with a pool?" "It can have a pool. We can look for one with a pool," Valentina conceded, laughing at his enthusiasm. "But you'll have to promise to always swim with an adult present." "I promise," Liam assured solemnly, before launching himself into their arms. "We're going to be like real families." Hugging all three on the terrace, under the morning sun, Alexander and Valentina exchanged looks of profound love and gratitude. The road had been long and difficult, full of wrong decisions and second chances. But they had finally found their way to be together, without sacrifices, without renunciations. As Liam talked excitedly about how he wanted to decorate his new room, Alexander remembered something important. "There's one more thing we have to do," he said, gently pulling away from the hug, to search for something in his pants pocket. To Valentina's surprised look, he pulled out a small paper flower, carefully preserved despite the years. "You've kept it all this time?" she asked, recognizing the origami flower he had given her on their first date. "I could never get rid of it," Alexander confessed. "It was the only thing I had left of you." Kneeling in front of her, with Liam watching curiously beside him, Alexander presented the delicate paper flower as if it were the most precious of diamonds. "Valentina Hayes, I have loved you across continents and years. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife, of officially sharing the life we are already building together?" Valentina's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, unable to speak from emotion. "Tell him yes, Mom," Liam exclaimed impatiently at her silence. "Yes," she finally managed to say, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, Alexander Thorne, I will marry you." As they kissed with Liam jumping and applauding around them, Alexander knew he had finally made the right decision. Not his career, not London, not business success. His family. Love. The home he had always sought without knowing it. 6 months later, in Grandma Clara's garden, under an awning of soft lights and white flowers, Alexander and Valentina swore eternal love, surrounded by their loved ones. Liam, proud ring-bearer, walked solemnly down the aisle, perfectly fulfilling his important mission. Life had not been easy for them. They had taken separate paths. They had suffered. They had doubted. But in the end, when Alexander slipped the ring onto Valentina's finger, and she did the same for him, they knew that everything, the pain, the distance, the waiting, had been worth it. Because some people are meant to find each other, no matter how many detours they take along the way. And as they shared their first dance as husband and wife, with Liam awkwardly trying to join them, Valentina whispered in Alexander's ear, "Thank you for coming back to me. I'll never leave again," he promised. "My home is where you are, where our family is." And this time, they both knew it was a promise that would last forever. 5 years had passed since that reunion in the hospital hallway. 5 years since Alexander discovered he had a son. 5 years since Valentina decided to give a second chance to the man who had once broken her heart. The house they had chosen together in a quiet residential neighborhood of New York now resonated with the laughter of 3 children. Liam, now 10, ran through the garden chasing his 3-year-old twin sisters, Lucy and Clara, named in honor of the 2 women who had been pillars in Valentina's life. From the terrace, Alexander watched the scene with a smile as he prepared the grill for the Sunday barbecue. Beside him, Edmund, who had decided to spend his retirement years in America to be close to his grandchildren, gave him advice on the perfect temperature for the meat. "Not too high, son," the man whose hair had turned completely white pointed out. "The secret is patience." "Like everything in life, right?" Alexander replied, thinking about how much patience his own path had required. In the kitchen, Valentina and Beatrice prepared, while Grandma Clara, who at 75 was still the soul of family gatherings, supervised the preparation of her famous chimichurri. The doorbell announced the arrival of more guests. Liam ran to open it, followed closely by the twins, who loved being the first to greet visitors. "Aunt Lucy!" the boy exclaimed, hugging the woman who had just arrived. "You brought Max." Lucy, who had returned from London a year ago to work at the new pediatric research center founded by Valentina and financed by Thorn Group, entered with her husband and young son. "Val," she called from the entrance, "I brought that wine you like so much." Valentina went out to greet her friend with a warm hug. The 2 women had maintained their close friendship despite the distance, and Lucy's return to New York had been an unexpected blessing. The center they ran together had become an international reference in innovative pediatric treatments. "You arrived just in time," Valentina smiled. "We were about to serve appetizers. How's everything at the center?" "The results of the new treatment are promising," Lucy replied as she hung up her coat. "The article is almost ready to send to the journal." "No work today," Alexander intervened, coming in to greet them. "It's Family Sunday, remember?" Valentina rolled her eyes with feigned exasperation, but kissed him softly before returning to the kitchen. After 5 years together, 3 of them married, they still sometimes behaved like newlyweds. The afternoon passed like so many other Sundays. Abundant food, lively conversations, children's laughter, and that feeling of belonging that only a united family can give. While the adults conversed on the terrace and the children played under Beatrice's supervision, Alexander approached Valentina and took her hand, discreetly guiding her towards the backyard. "What's wrong?" she asked, intrigued by his sudden mystery. "I wanted to show you something," Alexander replied, leading her to the large oak tree that dominated the back of the garden. There, hanging from one of the lower branches, was a small wooden box. "What is this?" "Open it," he smiled. With curiosity, Valentina opened the box to find an old pregnancy test, yellowed with time, but carefully preserved, along with the origami flower that Alexander had given her on their first date, and which he had used to propose marriage years later. "How?" she began, surprised. "I found it among your things when we moved," Alexander explained. "I never mentioned that I had seen it, but I always thought it was important to keep it. It's the beginning of our story, Val. The moment that changed our lives, even though I didn't know it then." Tears welled up in Valentina's eyes as she held the test that had confirmed Liam's pregnancy, that object that had witnessed her most vulnerable and solitary moment. "I want us to keep it here," Alexander continued, pointing to the box. "And every year, on the anniversary of our reunion, we'll add something new, a symbol of our history, of our family, so that our children will one day know everything we went through to be together." Valentina couldn't contain her emotion. She hugged Alexander tightly, silently thanking him for the path that had led them to this moment. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "Sometimes I can't believe how much." "I love you more," he replied, kissing her hair, "each day a little more than the last." Mom, Dad, Liam's voice interrupted their intimate moment. Grandpa Edmund says the meat is burning. Laughing, they returned hand in hand to the terrace, where their united families awaited them. On the way, Liam caught up with them, curious as ever. What were you doing? He asked, looking towards the oak tree in the distance. Alexander and Valentina exchanged a knowing glance. Remembering, Valentina simply replied. Remembering what? The boy insisted. Alexander knelt down to his son's height. That child who had come into his life in the most unexpected way and had changed everything forever. Someday we'll tell you the whole story, champ, he promised. The story of how your mom and I broke up, found each other again, and built this family. It's a story with sad moments, but with a very happy ending. Liam considered it for a moment, with that serious expression he put on when reflecting on something important. Can I put something in the box? He finally asked, surprising them. I saw you putting things in there. Valentina nodded, moved by his perception. Of course, my love. It's our family's memory box. What do you want to keep? Without answering, Liam ran into the house and returned minutes later with a drawing in his hand. It was a simple but affectionate portrait. 3 large figures and 2 small ones, all smiling under a bright sun. It's us, he explained, pointing to each figure. You, Dad, me, and the twins. Our family. Alexander felt a lump in his throat as he looked at the drawing. Who would have thought, that rainy day when he had chosen his career over Valentina, that destiny would offer them such a perfect second chance? Together, the 3 of them walked to the oak tree and placed the drawing in the box, thus sealing another chapter in their family story. When they returned to the terrace, where the twins scurried between the adults' legs and conversations flowed animatedly, Alexander looked around with deep gratitude, his father chatting amiably with Grandma Clara, his mother playing with his granddaughters, Lucy and her husband sharing anecdotes with the other guests, and above all, Valentina by his side, radiant and happy, the woman he had never stopped loving despite the distance and time. What are you thinking about? She asked, noting his contemplative gaze. About how it was worth it, Alexander replied. Every tear, every difficult moment, every wrong decision, everything brought us here, and I wouldn't change a single second. Not even London? Valentina joked, referring to the decision that once separated them. Especially not London, he smiled, because without that separation, perhaps we would never have learned to value what we had. What we have. Valentina rested her head on his shoulder, observing the family scene with equal gratitude. Life hadn't been easy, but it had given them exactly what they needed. Not a path without obstacles, but the strength to overcome them together. Do you know what's the most ironic thing? She said, as they watched Liam teach the twins a new trick. That in the end, none of us had to give up on our dreams. You have your career, I have mine, and together we have this, the family we always wanted. It's not irony, Alexander corrected, kissing her forehead. It's poetic justice, the universe balancing the scales. The sun began to set, bathing the scene with that same golden light that years ago illuminated their walks in the park when they were young and dreamed of a future together. A future that, through unexpected and sometimes painful paths, they had managed to build. And as they watched their children play, both knew with certainty that they had made the right decision that afternoon on the terrace 5 years ago. Because sometimes the most difficult path is precisely the one that leads us home. Tomorrow I have to travel to Boston for the news center, Valentina commented, remembering her obligations. I know, Alexander replied. The girls and Liam and I will be waiting for you with a surprise. Another one? She smiled. There will always be another one, he promised. A whole life of surprises, because you deserve it, Val. You deserve everything. And as the sun disappeared on the horizon, they sealed that promise with a kiss, knowing that their story, far from ending, was just beginning a new and exciting chapter. Because true love is not perfect or easy. It's complicated, sometimes painful, always challenging. But when it's real, when it's deep, no distance is too great, no obstacle too high, and no time too long. Alexander and Valentina had learned it the hard way, and now, surrounded by the family they had built together, they reaped the fruits of their perseverance and their unwavering faith in the healing power of love. A love that, like them, had matured with time, strengthening with every test, with every tear, with every reconciliation. A love that finally had found its way back home. What an emotional journey for Alexander and Valentina. What was your favorite moment in their story? Share your thoughts below and rate this story from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more inspiring tales.